Well, apparently I'm making my way down the PSA line of products. Well, back in about 2006, I used to own an Arsenal milled AK-47, and it was an amazing rifle, and I'm kind of kicking myself in the head for selling it way back when. But, you know, I've always wanted to get another AK-47, and once again, PSA and their amazing specials and sales, it was hard to pass up this PSA with a Magpul Furniture AK-47. Now, I didn't want to spend a lot of money on this rifle. For me, it's more about plinking and being able to buy very inexpensive Wolf steel case ammunition. So accuracy with this project is not that big of a concern with me in comparison to my AR-10s and my AR-15s. Now, PSA is actually selling this rifle by itself on sale for $5.99 shipped, but you can actually buy an AR-15 and this very AK-47 in a rifle set for $970 shipped, which pretty much comes out to roughly $485 for each rifle. So let's quick go over the features of this PSA AK-47 with Magpul Furniture. Okay, so I know some die-hard nostalgic enthusiasts of the AK-47 probably going to razz me pretty good about not having true wood furniture on their AK-47 or my AK-47, but whatever. I guess, you know, for me, it's not that big of a deal. I'm more about comfort and being able to get behind the rifle comfortably and making sure I get the correct cheek weld. So with that being said, I think it's hard to beat the Magpul Zukov buttstock for the AK-47, especially with these clip-on cheek risers. I've tried the quarter, half, and 0.75 or 3/4 of an inch cheek risers that clip on to the Zukov buttstock itself, and save yourself some time and money. Don't get the quarter or half inch, beeline it right to the 3/4 cheek weld riser, and it works great for scopes and red dots. It comes off that easy, and it clips on just as easy. Magpul AK pistol grip and the Magpul Akm Handguard. In between the buttstock and the handguard, there is not an ounce of wobble in either one. And in my opinion, it's definitely the way to go if you're going to get an AK-47. It also comes with a slanted AK muzzle brake. With this little indention here, it self-times itself. There's a little notch here on the brake itself where it clicks into place. Now, I have some limitations shooting prone. I pretty much can't shoot prone anymore after my surgery on my neck and some nerve damage to the nerve root that controls my right arm. So, you know, I'm kind of limited to shooting standing upright or from a bench. And take some advice, if you do shoot from a bench, you're probably going to want to purchase a 10-round PMag 10, the AKMDE, along with your rifle. If you don't have a 10-rounder, you know, that comes with a 30-round, it's definitely going to hit the bench, which eventually I'm going to put a bipod on this. I've yet to receive the M-Lock bipod adapter, which I'm eventually going to install here, which you're most likely going to see here in part 2. But yeah, regardless, if you're shooting from a bench, you're going to want to purchase one of these 10-round AKP mags. Now, with my past experience with AKs, I know they come with really bad trigger groups in them, and I did a little research, and according to the specs of this rifle on the rifle set or this specific rifle by itself, PSA says that this rifle comes with a double hook trigger control group. So I actually purchased this from PSA along with the rifle for $24.99 and all anticipation to replace the trigger. But my surprise when I actually got the PSA AK-47, it actually already had it installed, which, you know, fine, by all means, that's awesome. So I guess I'm gonna have to return this back to PSA and get my $25 back. It does make a heck of a difference to have this premium single hook semi-auto fire control group in comparison to a double hook. And the quickest way to find out if your rifle comes with a single or double hook, it's very simple. If it's got one single hook here, it's a single hook. If it's got a double hook on both sides, obviously it's a double hook. But to have this installed, it makes a world of difference. Now, there is a little bit of creep. I'll see if I can get this on camera here. It's kind of tough, but you know, you can see it. It's sliding, a little creep. It's almost like a two-stage trigger, and then it has a crisp break right there. And it's actually not bad. I mean, it's no AR trigger, but in my opinion, for an AK-47, especially for under 500 bucks, it's quite amazing. Now, these AK-47s come as what they call blemished from PSA. And, you know, I didn't find a single scratch or mark on this entire AK-47 other than my rear sight. You know, I had noticed it's a little discolored here, and underneath it had a little discolored black finish underneath it. It's almost like red, which, you know, for an AK-47, especially for under 500 bucks, it's really not a big issue. And I guess if you want to call that blemished, so be it. But the fit and function of this entire rifle so far, in my opinion, is not blemished. It is good to go right out of the box. It's a gas tube. There's nothing to show here. Now, I've fired this. It is dirty. You know, just to give you a quick overview of the piston and the bolt. You know, everything is pretty standard here. I'm not even really going to go over this, but you know, some of you might want to see pictures of this in detail, so I'll see if I can get this zoomed in here. It needs to be clean. It's pretty dirty. But all the numbers match. Matches on the bolt, the piston. So far, so good. Now the side scope rail, it is solid. The rivets look amazing. You know, it is a stamped receiver. It's not like my old milled Arsenal. You know, you will get a little flex with a stamped receiver with your scope mount base. But you know, that's just part of the fun. It's part of the nostalgia of having an AK-47. And my Midwest Industries AK scope mount mounts up perfectly. Well, I'm not sure if you can make this out in the video or not, but the front to rear iron sights are straight as an arrow. Now this is the heart, the entire decision of why I purchased this PSA AK-47. The mere fact that I was able to get 1,000 rounds of this 7.62 by 39 full metal jacket Wolf ammunition shipped for $185. I mean, that works out to $3.70 for every 20 round box, or a little over 18 cents a round. And heck, I can barely buy bullets in a 308 for that price. And that's where the nostalgia factor comes in, for me at least, for this rifle. It's not so much about the accuracy, but it's just about going out to the range and shooting some inexpensive ammunition, you know, plinking and having a good time. So before I head out to the range here, I just want to go over the optics of this AK-47. With the Midwest Industries side scope rail mount, I had to remove the lower 1/3 co-witness base and had to apply on the low profile base to get this down as far as I possibly could, and also had to add on this 3/4 inch riser to get the correct cheek weld, and it is absolutely perfect. And I initially mounted up my Vortex Strike Eagle 1:6 power scope with the Vortex VPR-30L 30mm tube low height scope rings. It's a 0.87 inch rise, and it is absolutely perfect. The magnification bell just clears the Picatinny rail. I did notice I had to push the scope as far forward as I could possibly get it on the rail itself and in the rings to get the correct eye relief, even with the buttstock adjusted all the way out. And it's comfortable. I did notice shooting from a bench, I wish I had a little bit more room between the scope and my eye. You know, if this adjusted out just a little bit more, if I could push the scope a little far forward, it would be absolutely perfect. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's pretty good and it's acceptable. But I think in this situation with a rifle like this, you know, being shot roughly 100, maybe 200 yards, I think the red dot's gonna be the way to go. So before I hit the range and zero in this Romeo Red Dot 5, I just want to double check the trajectory to make sure that a 50-yard zero is perfect for this AK-47. You know, my experience in the past and talking to other guys, it seems like they do a 50-yard zero and sometimes even a 35-yard zero if they're going to be shooting at 200 yards or less. I think in my situation, I'm mostly going to be shooting at 50 or 100. I highly doubt I'm going to go past that. You know, I'm just plinking and having a good time, and I don't want to readjust my red dot. But you might even want to consider a 35-yard zero, which will get you from 0 to 200. We'll have a slightly higher peak in the middle, but let me just show you what's going on here. So I'm going to select just a generic load. I mean, obviously the best way to do this would be to use a chronograph, but I don't never chronograph ever. So 7.62 by 39 Soviet, and we're going to select the Wolf. They actually show it as 1.9 grains full metal jacket, even though it's 123, but I think that'll be acceptable. I think their muzzle velocity is a little high. You know, from what I've been reading and listening to other guys actually chronograph their loads, usually it's about 2375. And we're going to do a zero range starting out at 50. And I double checked my sight height with my calipers, measuring from the firing pin to the middle of the red dot, and that was pushing 2.8 inches. Maximum range, I'm going to set that at 300. Range increments of 25 should be good. So calculate trajectory. And you can see on the chart here, zero's out at 50, and at 100 it's 1 inch over, and it starts to drop after 100 yards and re-zeroes back out at roughly 160, 175 yards. You know, it's -3 at 200. I think that's acceptable and is, I guess, what you consider combat effective. And just to show you, you know, at a 50-yard zero at 200 at -3.35, you know, if I change this zero range to 35, you can see it zeroes out pretty much right at 200 yards, but at 100 yards it's +3 damn near. So I think in my situation, a 50-yard zero is still going to be better than a 35-yard zero, but it's something to consider. So enough of the BS. Let's take this off to the range and shoot some of this inexpensive Wolf ammunition and see how she performs. So I'm not going to bore you with all the sighting in BS. I just got this sighted in at 50 yards, and I'm going to run this camera down to the 50-yard line and shoot a couple of 5-round shot groups. This is my first 2 shots. The last 3 shots. Let's shoot a couple more 5-round groups here. You know, not too darn shabby for some steel case cheap Wolf ammunition that I got for roughly $3.50 per 20-round box. You know, this was my sighting group here, and then my second group, I noticed a little high. I shot another one to confirm, and then I adjusted down a little bit. I think I need to adjust down just a little bit more. But this last 5-shot group, you know, I'm guessing is about a little over an inch, maybe 1.25 inches. So for iron sights and some really cheap steel case Wolf ammunition, not too bad. So let's run this down to the 100-yard range, or 100-yard mark, and run a 6x5 and see how she runs. So, you know, for 100 yards, you know, this was one of my AR-10s or AR-15s with a stainless steel barrel. The reloads, it's definitely be not acceptable, but with a red hot pencil AK barrel and some really crappy Wolf ammunition, I think this gives you a realistic idea what an AK can do at 100 yards with really inexpensive ammo. Like I said, I got this for $185 shipped for $1,000 from Brownells. And, you know, I got almost all bullets in the inner roughly 4.5, 5-inch circles. Like, you know, I got one here, I got one here that's out of the circle, but, you know, it seems accuracy is pretty repeatable. And with a 1x red dot scope, no magnifier, you know, I'd say that's pretty darn good, and that's what this rifle is all about. You know, it's not about accuracy, it's just about having fun and shooting super expensive ammo that I can't even reload that cheap. And it's just fun, it's nostalgic, and that's what I enjoy about this rifle. You know, I'd say the best group here, without actually measuring, is probably this one. I'd say it's roughly 3.5 inches. This one's probably about 3.5 inches also. I'm thinking they're averaging across the board probably about 4 inches, but I think we'll get a better idea when we get back to the reloading room. So, you know, this is the 1X red dot, and you know, I'm gonna have to slap on my 1-to-6 power Strike Eagle and give that a shot and see how it performs. But I really like the cheek weld and not having to worry about an eye box or eye relief that you'd have with a 1x6 Strike Eagle. This Romeo Red Dot 5, you know, you just get behind it and shoot and go. And for 100 yards, some crappy ammo. I think there's about a little over $3 a box for 20 rounds. Really don't think you can go wrong, especially for something to plink with at the range. So Anyways, enough BS. Let's take this back to the reloading room and we'll score this up, see where we're at. Well, for some really inexpensive Wolf steel case ammunition that costs roughly 18 cents a round, I'd say it wasn't too bad. So I picked up some of the steel casing off the ground just to show you in case you're, tempted to reload for an AK-47. I'm still kind of up in the air if I want to go down that road or not, especially when I can get this stuff for 18 cents a round. I did notice some serious cratering on the primers. There were no real gouges in the base or in the side of the body. Case mouth opening is exactly perfectly round. I know it's hard to gauge this with, steel casing. If it was ejected with much softer metal such as brass, you probably see a lot more damage to the casing itself. But if this is to give you any inclination if this is suitable for reloading, I would say so far it would push me towards that direction of possibly reloading for this AK-47. But that's not what this rifle, at least for me, is intended for. This is just more for having a good time at the range, not having to reload, and getting some inexpensive ammunition offline and just having a good time. Stay tuned to part 2, where I'm most likely going to mount up this Vortex Strike Eagle 1-6 power scope and probably buy some better ammunition that has more of a brass casing rather than steel casing, and see what kind of performance we can squeeze out of this PSA AK-47. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and I'll see you in part 2.